Hey everyone, my name is Lillian. I'm the book blogger behind Utopia's State of Mind, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my YA 2022 favorites. I just want to make a quick disclaimer as well. Oh, I just exited out of my favorites notes. I just want to make a quick disclaimer as well that this video will feature some titles which were published by HarperCollins. HarperCollins Union, over 250 employees roughly have been on strike since November 10th, which is just like completely awful. I could go on and on about how this is just so wrong. They are asking for a lot of different things that are very important. The first is living wages. Like, it is not easy to live and work in New York City, and for the amount they are being paid, it makes it almost impossible. So they're asking for a raise in starting salary. They're also asking for some diversity initiatives and union protections as well. So please look at the links down below. Also the bookshop.org link where you can buy books and also directly benefit HarperCollins Union. Also the HarperCollins Union's Linktree where you can find all the links to follow them, to donate directly as well. And also just note that they're recently also asking users and readers and like reviewers and everyone basically to flood social media accounts for HarperCollins with the hashtag HCP Union Strike. I can't remember, but I will put it down below. And also to ask them to pay their workers a living wage. So I'm not going, normally I do mini reviews of all of these different titles, but for HarperCollins, we are being asked to hold reviews. So for those, I will only be mentioning them and showing them to you, but I will not be doing mini reviews of them. So I first want to talk about YA sci-fi fantasy. The first one is Cold the Night, Fast the Wolves, which if you didn't think that you needed a sci-fi kind of set story about sled dog racing, I don't know what to tell you, but that is what Cold the Night, Fast the Wolves, and it is just so fun, so action-packed, adventure-packed. I'm reading the companion novel right now to it as well. So fantastic. I loved the sense of danger, but also the sense of adventure. Like, the pacing was fantastic. It never kind of lulled. You always kept me wanting to keep going. And the sci-fi touches are just really, really fun and unique. The next one is Mindwalker, which is a really fabulous sci-fi debut that talks about like the ethics of being turned into a weapon. I feel like a lot of sci-fi books go into kind of the weaponization of people from a bodily perspective, but also like the weaponization of people in general for the future and what that means for technology and society and people in general. And so I feel like Mindwalker is a thoughtful take on what that would mean for individuals as well. The next 3 books for HarperCollins, so I'm going to just mention them, put them up on the screen, but I'm not going to be reviewing them. This is for fantasy as well. The other 2 were sci-fi, by the way. These are for fantasy. It is 1,000 Steps into Night by Tracy G. The next one is Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. This is also the start of a series, by the way. Only a Monster. And Blood Sign, which is also the start of a series as well. The non-HarperCollins titles I can tell you a little bit more about are The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. Axie O is like, any book I read by Axie, I'm surprised by how well Axie can genre change. The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea is a fantasy story, but it also really talks about sacrifice, community, and like clever heroines who will do the unexpected and still succeed. Like, it's not about necessarily lots and lots of fighting. It's about kind of like thoughtful heroines, thoughtful main characters who exist in fantasy worlds who can also succeed. The next one is Foul Lady Fortune. I talked everywhere about how much I love Foul Lady Fortune. This is like a companion kind of almost sequel series to These Violent Delights. Foul Lady Fortune, though, has like fake dating and spies. It feels funnier, it feels more lighthearted, I guess, than These Violent Delights, which had like a fantastical danger. But Foul Lady Fortune also still has all of those threads, but it just feels a little bit more, I guess the spies to me brings like a levity to it, which shouldn't really necessarily, but the spies bring a different element to the plot, which we didn't really see in These Violent Delights. And it makes it feel very kind of like action-packed, going on about kind of like foreign investments and foreign involvement as well, though, in the setting and what that means for the future and what that means for the characters. The next one is This Rebel Heart, which is a historical fiction fantasy, or historical fiction fantasy about rebellion, but also the way that it is just so written. It is written in such a beautiful way where like things are in color, and when things could become in color, what that would mean, but also about like queer stories within a historical fiction setting, but also with fantasy and with rebellion. It is just heart-wrenching from like start to finish, but also in a beautiful, beautiful way. The next one is An Arrow to the Moon, which is like Romeo and Juliet meets Chinese mythology. And also, I did a like conversation with Emily XR Pan and Chloe Gong, both who wrote Romeo and Juliet fantasy, basically. And so I'll leave that link below. But I really loved Astonishing Color of After, so I had really high hopes for An Arrow to the Moon, and it was really fantastic. The twists that were in there, I did not expect, and I was like, whoa, this took it to a new level. So if you like those and also were a fan of The Astonishing Color of After, definitely check that one out. The next one is Sophie and the Bone Song, which is such a intensely emotional story about the idea that suffering creates art, but also the idea like that's wrong. You shouldn't have to suffer to create something beautiful. And it's also about that, but it's also about the idea that our voice has power, like that theme. Oh, so good in Sophie and the Bone Song. It's also a queer fantasy. Like, it is just all of these different elements rolled into one. It is so, so, so gorgeous. The next one is Violet Made of Thorns, which is, if you've ever been reading a fantasy story where everyone is super noble and they're just like, oh, I will do all of these different things so that everyone can survive because it's more important for all these lives versus my own personal life. Yeah, I get it. We love that. I love that. But Violet Made of Thorns is that character who's like, but my life, like, what about my survival? What about my life? Like, that matters too. I need to get through to survive the day to day. Everyone has been kind of referring to this, or a lot of people are referring to this about a morally gray heroine. I think that kind of applies to Violet Made of Thorns in the sense that I think a lot of the heroines or heroes in fantasy have been very much like selfless and everything like that. And I just feel like that's not how the majority of people are. So it's not, I kind of struggle with the idea of like morally gray. I think that it's only morally gray in relation to what we're expecting, I guess, from certain heroines or heroes in fantasy, but that is a conversation for another day. But anyway, I also love the magic in Violet Made of Thorns and the conversations that are brought up in Violet Made of Thorns about sacrifice and about betrayal. The next one is Strike the Zither, which, you know, if you ever have a crush on those characters who are like so clever, so much smarter than you are, Zephyr, Strike the Zither, you'll thank me later. She's like this cunning, strategic mastermind, basically. And so it is just fascinating to see all the things that she's balancing in her head, all the ways that she makes it work. And this fantasy has so many gorgeous like twists, and they're like, oh, you think you got it, but you don't. I love it so much. I'm so excited for Sound the Gong, which should be coming out, I think, in this year. And the final one, oh wait, not the final one, the penultimate one is The Vermilion Emporium. This is Jamie Pacton's fantasy debut. Jamie has written contemporaries before, which I've loved. But The Vermilion Emporium is like so stunningly gorgeous and lyrical about grief and about sacrifice and about love, like all at once, all three of those things. It has a few twists which I was not expecting at all in terms of where the book is going or where the book has went, because I've already read it. But it is just such a, like, it's a book which pulls at your heartstrings and you feel like, oh, this is just so heart-wrenching, but also so beautiful and loving at the same time. Like, all of those things, basically, for the Vermilion Emporium. And finally, Bloodmarked. It took everything I loved about Legendborn and just, like, made it so much more fabulous, thoughtful, introspective, everything. Like the action, the adventure, the twists, how it continues conversations and complicates things, or complicates conversations and explores conversations about racism, about legacy, about privilege, about all of those different things. I just, this was such a fabulous sequel. I was expecting it to be amazing, but this was just like more amazing than I thought. The next one is YA Contemporary. The HarperCollins titles that I really enjoyed, which I will not be reviewing for this, are Breathe and Count Back from 10, The Summer of Bitter and Sweet, Private Label, This Place is Still Called Beautiful, and Out of the Blue. The non-HarperCollins titles I can chat about with you. I have a ton. Oh my god, I'm exhausted looking at this list. 2022 was like a YA contemporary year for me. I feel like I was just wanting these contemporary stories. I felt a little bit burnt out by fantasy and sci-fi, honestly, in 2022. And so YA Contemporary became kind of like a little safe space for me. And these ones were just so fabulous. The first one is Queen of Tiles, which if you watched not Game of Thrones, if you watched The Queen's Gambit and were like, great, I don't understand chess, so interesting, but not for me, but instead spent your childhoods playing Scrabble and were like, that I get. This is about Scrabble competitions. It's a murder mystery. It is just so thrilling all at once. It has a hint of unreliability in it as well. So fabulous. The next one is Self-Made Boys. This is, I don't like The Great Gatsby, but Self-Made Boys made me appreciate and almost like The Great Gatsby. It is a retelling. It is just a fantastic kind of queer love story as well, rooted in the Great Gatsby world, rooted in the themes of the Great Gatsby, also about this idea of performance and identity complicated by the historical fiction aspect. Like, it is just so fabulous, and it made me appreciate the Great Gatsby themes but connect with them in a way I have never ever done. Ophelia, after all, was such a gorgeous, just charming book about identity, about questioning, about this idea of like, what happens if I'm not the person everyone thinks I am? What happens if I'm actually someone different? If I want to be someone different, what would that look like, and what would that be like? The next one is All the Right Reasons. I really like Bethany Mangle's books, and so I really enjoyed All the Right Reasons. It has such heart. It is endearing. The characters are so fabulous. I feel like one of Bethany Mangle's strong suit has been charismatic, endearing, complex characters, and All the Right Reasons is another one of those. The next one is The One True Me and You, which is kind of like Comic-Con and beauty pageants and a queer love story, but also coming up against homophobia as well, all smushed into one with friendship and found family. So fabulous. I read it and was just utterly swept away and totally charmed. The next one is Kiss and Tell, which is like boy bands. It's also queer. So many of these are queer and fabulous. It just is like about fame and about what it means, like who your sense of self is and what matters to you, and all the ways that fame complicates and changes those things for you. I've not been famous, never will be famous, but Kiss and Tell really made me appreciate these different complexities of fame and what it means to people. The next one is The Heartbreak Symphony. I adored Somewhere Between Bitter and Sweet, and so The Heartbreak Symphony has those gorgeous conversations about family, about friendship, and about love, and it includes music as well, but it also has stunning conversations as well about immigration and racism, and all of it. Like, also is sort of a companion novel to Somewhere Between Bitter and Sweet. There are elements of it, or not elements, sorry, there are references to it as well, which I loved, kind of those Easter eggs. Beauty and the Bisharam. I did a few kind of events with Lily Vale about Beauty and the Bisharam, but this made me feel so seen as someone who so often in life has felt like too much or too intense, too passionate about something that we love. I feel like Beauty and the Bisharam, this rivals to romance feeling with a character who always feels like they're too much, so endearing and also so relatable. The next one is See You Yesterday, which is time loops meets college settings meets Rachel Lynn Solomon's characters, like charismatic, complex, endearing, but also meets these conversations about what time means and this idea of what the present means to you. I love time loop stuff. I think that there's going to be more time loop things that I'm going to discover that I love in 2023, and I'm ready for it. Time loops are like one of my favorite little pet interests. The next one is A Chauffeur 2, which I just love that it was inspired by an actual experience that Tashi had meeting Tom Holland in real life. But also, A Chauffeur 2 is it's a little bit about fame as well, kind of like Kiss and Tell, but it's also about dreams, and it's about ambitions, and when you're not sure if your parents will support you, and you have to come to the reality that maybe they won't, maybe they will. It's about high school, and it's about love as well, all about all of those things in a very heart-wrenching, emotional story, which I feel like Tashi is just like, that's the Tashi signature to me. The next one is Man o' War, which is a story about transphobia. It's also a story about coming to terms with our own identity and what it means to connect to our identity and our ethnicity in a way that maybe our parents haven't, but for internalized racism reasons, for example. So I love that. I loved also that Man of War has a main character who's a swimmer. I personally cannot really swim, so this was also like a joy for me. It is also a queer contemporary about also love and friendship. The next one is Xylan Kai by Christina Forrest. Xylan Kai really makes you think about everything that other people think about people's relationships. It has at the very heart of it Xylan Kai's relationship, but it starts off with kind of like their disappearance. And so Christina Forrest brings in all of these other characters who are like speculating about Xylan Kai and what their relationship what their relationship is like and what has happened. And it really makes you think about, in these books, like what the side characters think about the main characters' lives. It was really interesting, that aspect, and that kind of like made me love it even more. The next one is Hollow Fires, which I listened to as an audiobook and made me cry. Just bawl. It is about Islamophobia and explicit and also implicit Islamophobia, and the way that it can like sneak up on you in ways you wouldn't expect, like the people you wouldn't expect as well, and the way that people will have limits about what they will do as allies, how they will stand up and speak out. So I really enjoyed that one, but like that was a heart wrencher. Hollow Fires. Next one is Home Field Advantage, which is kind of like a queer sports romance, and also just like, this is my favorite of Dahlia Adler's books. I listened to this also in audiobook, by the way. But Home Field Advantage was about questioning. It was about not sure if you can be out to, like the community, to your school, to your family, to your friends, all of those different things. And also about love, and about like coming to terms with yourself and what you are willing to risk and say about yourself, and living that way, living like true to who you are. All of those different things. The next one is Dead End Girls, which is a queer mystery kind of thriller. I also listened to this audiobook. It is about these two girls who are going on the run, kind of just one more spontaneously than the other. I loved thinking about going on the run. I loved thinking about what it would take to force someone to want to do that in this realistic way. But also what you'd actually need to do for it. It was just really interesting, and the adventure was just totally captivating. The next one is The Lies We Tell by Katie Zhao. This one was such a fabulous story about racism, but also about community and family and friendship, and kind of what secrets we will keep, and what secrets and what lies we'll tell, what lies we'll keep as well. The next one is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. I cried multiple times reading this book. it was a book where like I didn't know where it was going to go. It is contemporary, but it is something that I think everyone should honestly read because it is so firmly rooted in Syria and so firmly rooted in like this idea of revolution, but like personal stakes in revolution, what we will do with our individual lives and contribution to revolution as well, and how we can make an impact. The next one is Everyone Hates Kelsey Miller, which just like felt like a stake to the heart in how relatable Everyone Hates Kelsey Miller was. It is just such a cute premise of two people going on a road trip basically to figure out why they've been ghosted, but also what does this say about me and my relationship and my past and like all of these things which I didn't want to confront but also have to on this road trip. That's what Everyone Hates Kelsey Miller is about. And why I loved it. Drizzle Dreams and Love Struck Things has like a Little Women's Sisters vibe, but it takes place in different sisters' perspectives over the entire year in seasons, which I just love that touch, honestly. But it is so gorgeous. There's also a queer sister as well in there. It is so gorgeous in the way that it talks about how we define ourselves in relation to our family and the support we get from our family. I really loved also how this book delved into how each sister kind of sees each other in the book. We really are able to see all of that. And the final one is We Deserve Monuments. We Deserve Monuments is a book that is difficult to explain because it's kind of like about intergenerational trauma and internalized homophobia, but also about the impending death of a loved one, and also about a new school and friendship and love, like all of these different things all wrapped into one. I wasn't sure what to expect based on what I knew about the book, but I just fell in love entirely with this book and how like endearing and rooted in character development and detail We Deserve Monuments. It is a fantastic YA debut from 2022. And that's it. Those are all my 2022 favorites, and specifically the YA edition. Let me know if you've read any of these books, and also if you have a recommendation for me. I'll let you go. It's been a long time that we've been chatting. Hope you have a really great reading day, week, month, and start of your 2023 year, and I'll see you in the next one.